So we'll sing a song today first, which is called Shri Vrajaraj Sutashtakam. It is not known as to who has actually composed this song, but he is obviously a great Vaishnava. So your phones or your other books, you can open up to this. Navanirada Nindita Kanti Dharam. Navanirada. That is those are the first two words.
It's on the WhatsApp group, Bhagavatam Sangha WhatsApp group.
I'll read the translation first. He whose complexion conquers that of a fresh new rain cloud, who is the best king of paramours, the ocean of ecstatic mellows, whose crown is adorned with a lovely peacock feather, and is auspiciously tilted to one side, just worship Krishna, the dark jewel, the son of the king of Vraja. He whose broadly bending eyebrows appear like arched rainbows, whose pure moonlight face belittles millions of ordinary moons, who is endowed with sweet gentle smiles and pleasant speech, just worship Krishna, the dark jewel, the son of King of Raja. He whose divine bodily limbs tremble profusely with Cupid's agitations, who dresses enchantingly just to fascinate the Vrajavasis, who is decorated with extraordinary eyes just like blue lotus blossoms, just worship Krishna, the dark jewel, the son of the king of Vraja. He whose forehead is surrounded by a fringe of wavy locks, whose earlobes are embellished with swaying shark-shaped earrings, who is adorned with yellow silk embracing his charming hips, just worship Krishna, the dark jewel, the son of the king of Vraja. He whose beautiful feet resound with softly tinkling ankle bells that madden all the bees with their vibration of swinging gemstones, whose souls are marked with the flag, thunderbolt, fish, and more. Just worship Krishna, the dark jewel, the son of the king of Vraja. He whose graceful form is smeared with profuse sandal paste, whose body glows with the Kaustubh gem, eclipsing the sun, whose personal beauty represents the topmost zenith of Raja youths. Just worship Krishna, the dark jewel, the son of the king of Vraja. He who is Mukunda and Hari, worshipable for all the demigods and sages, who is the Guru of all created beings, the crest jewel of all lords, who is known as Giridhari and Murari, more exalted even than Lord Shiva. Just worship Krishna, the dark jewel, the son of the king of Vraja. He who is most fond of sporting with the daughter of Rishabhanu, who dresses impeccably as the crown prince of mellow relishers, who is most praiseworthy Lord of Lords in the entire universe, just worship Krishna, the dark jewel, the son of the king of Vraja. Somebody wants this? We have an extra sheet here if anybody wants. Anyone needs it? So notice the last line of each is Bhaja Krishna Nidhim Vrajaraj Sutam. Vrajaraj is the king of Vraja. Sutam refers to the son. His name is Krishna. But the word Krishna Nidhim, Krishna indicates dark, Nidhim means like a treasure or a jewel. So Krishna is referred to here as the dark jewel, who is a son of King of Raja. Bhaja means to worship. So let us worship the son of Nanda Maharaj, who is like a dark jewel. Vrajaraj Sutta. Ashtakam. The Ashtaka, the 8 verses that glorify the son of the king of Vraja, Vrajaraj. We'll have to play the karta at a very slow speed, huh? Like this. This speed. Like this. Okay? Slower. Like Navanirada nindita kanti dharam rasasagara nagara bhupavaram 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 Shubhavam kimacharu shikham Bhaja Krishna nidhim Vrajaraj sutam Bhaja Krishna nidhim Vrajaraj sutam Ruvishankitavam kimashok shakrudhanum Mukhachandra vinindita koti vidum Mridumanda suhasya subhashyayutam Bhaja Krishna nidhim Vrajaraja sutam Suvikam padananga sadangadharam Vrajavasi manohara veshakaram Suvikam padananga sadangadharam Vrajavasi manohara veshakaram Vrishalanchita nila saroja drisham Bhaja Krishna nidhim Vrajaraja sutam Vrishalanchita nila saroja drisham Bhaja Krishna nidhim Vrajaraja sutam Palakavali mandita palatatam Shruti dolita makara kundalakam Kativeshita pita patam sudhatam Bhaja Krishna nidhim Vrajaraja sutam Kativeshita pita patam sudhatam Bhaja Krishna nidhim Vrajaraja sutam Kalano purarajita charupadam Mariranjita ganjita bringamadam Purarajita charupadam Mariranjita ganjita bringamadam Dvaja vajra jashankita padayugam Bhaja Krishna nidhim Vrajaraja sutam Chandana charchita charutanam Shiromani Sarvagurum Giridhari Murari Purari Param Bhaja Krishna Nidhim Vraja Raja Sutam Giridhari Murari Purari Param Bhaja Krishna Nidhim Vraja Raja Sutam Vrishabhanu Sutta Shiromani Veshadharam Jagadishwaram Ishwaram Nidhyavaram Bhaja Krishna Nidhim Vraja Raja Sutam Krishna Nidhim Vraja Raja Sutam Bhaja Krishna Nidhim Vraja Raja Sutam Bhaja Krishna Nidhim Vraja Raja Sutam Bhaja Krishna Nidhim Vraja Raja Sutam.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So what was this song called? Shri Vrajaraj Sutashtakam, glorifying boom. Which kind of jewel? Krishna Nidhim, the dark jewel, who is the son of the king of Vraja, son of Nanda Maharaj. Bhaja Krishna Nidhim Vrajaraj Sutam. So worship, this song is urging us to worship the dark jewel who is the son of the king of Vraja, that is of Nanda Maharaj. By the way, this was the first time I sung this melody, and I just thought of it 10 minutes before the program began. I was thinking, what is the other melody we have heard before, which is the one that we use for Ujjvala Varana also. But this time I wanted to give it more of a classical thing. This came to mind, so I sung it. But I don't know which rag this is. You know rags?
Yeah.
Which was this rag which I... It's not a particular rag, I think,
No.
but anyway, something that...
It says here in the...
Yeah, the particular rag.
It has to be Raga Madhyamat Sarang,
Yeah.
Bhajani Tal.
Mm.
I think the Tal was the same.
You can ask someone someone who knows what is this rag, Madhyamat Sarang. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Tato Jayamudiraye.
Tato Jayamudiraye.
Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu.
Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Bhagavatyuttama Shloke.
Bhagavate Uttama Shloke.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishiki.
Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 1, Text 4. A very famous verse. Srila Prabhupada cited this very often, and he has also written a fairly long purport on this verse. 10.1.4. So those of you who have your phones, you can open up. Nivritta Tarshaihi Upagiyamana Bhava Aushadha Shrotra Manaha Abhirama Kaha Uttama Shloka Guna Anuvada Puman Virajeta Vina Pashukna Nivritta Tarshairupagiyamana Bhavo Shadashrotra Mano Virama Ka Uttama Shloka Gunanuvadat Puman Virajeta Vina Pashukna Nivritta Tarshairupagiyamana Bhavo Shadashrotra Mano Virama Kauttama Shloka Gunanuvadat Puman Virajeta Vina Pashukna Please chant.
Nivritta Tarshairupagiyamana
Bhava Shrutamano Virama Uttama Shloka Gunanuvada Puman Virajeta Vina Pashukna
Nivritta Tarshairupagiyamana
Nivritta, released from Tarshaihi, lust or material activities. Upagiyamana, which is described or sung. Bhava Aushadhat, which is the right medicine for the material disease. Shrotra,
Shrotra,
the process of oral reception.
the process of oral reception.
Manaha,
Manaha,
the subject matter of thought.
the subject matter of thought.
For the mind.
For the mind.
Abhiramat,
Abhirama,
from the pleasing vibrations.
from the pleasing vibrations.
From such glorification.
From such glorifications.
Kaha,
Kaha,
who?
who,
Uttama Shloka,
Uttama Shloka,
of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Guna Anuvadat,
Guna Anuvada,
from describing such activities.
from describing such activities.
Puman,
Puman,
a person.
a person.
Virajyeta,
Virajyeta,
can keep himself aloof.
can keep himself aloof.
Vina,
Vina,
except.
except.
Pashubhnat,
Pashubhna,
either a butcher
either a butcher
or one who is killing
or one who is killing
his own personal existence.
his own personal existence.
Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Rasamrita Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is performed in the Parampara system. That is, it is conveyed from spiritual master to disciple. Such glorification is relished by those no longer interested in the false temporary glorification of this cosmic manifestation. Descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned soul undergoing repeated birth and death. Therefore, who will cease hearing such glorification of the Lord except a butcher or one who is killing his own self? Om Ajnanatirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Tam Sajivam Sarvaikam Savadutam Parijana Saritam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Radha Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyadesh Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
As I was mentioning before, this verse is very important because it describes something very, very fundamental to us. It gives us, like a good doctor would, the correct diagnosis of our disease and also the correct prescription. And now it is up to us whether we want to be a good patient or not. Unless there is a correct diagnosis, where is the question of a correct treatment? So the first step in medical treatment is correct diagnosis. To understand what precisely is the problem. So in this material world, people have many ideas or conceptions of what the problems of life are. Somebody thinks unemployment is the real problem. Somebody thinks terrorism is the real problem. Somebody thinks environmental degradation or climate change is the real problem. Some people think inflation is the real problem. And some people think winning the football game is the real problem, or losing the football game is the real problem, so on and so forth. Now, it's not that we don't agree that these are problems. Even losing a football game can cause people to get heart attacks and die, and they undergo such lamentation and suffering. So yes, it is a problem, undoubtedly. So we have so many types of problems. People are complaining about shortages in this world, shortage of oil, shortage of this, shortage of that, but there is no shortage of one thing, problems. Yes? Can anyone say there's shortage of problems in my life? Can anyone say that? Life is full of problems, from beginning to end. One has hardly got solved and the other is sitting on our head. Sometimes they all come together in a crowd also. And they all demand immediate attention. So there is an endless queue of problems waiting for us in material existence. One after the other, one after the other, they will keep coming. Of course, one has no choice but to tolerate it. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkhadaha agama paino nitya stam stitikshasva bharata. He says that, my dear Arjuna, just as with the changing seasons, we experience happiness and distress. When winter comes, it's very cold. When summer comes, it's warm. So just as these seasons come and go, each with its own characteristics, similarly, happiness and distress also come and go. They may not come and go with the same regularity as the seasons come and go. There's summer, then winter, then summer, then winter. So it doesn't have to be happiness, distress, Krishna doesn't mean it like that. It can be distress, happiness. Distress, happiness. Yes? It can be like that also. And if you win 4 football games in a row, happiness, I will lose the final. Distress. That's a big distress. Right? Our happiness is dependent as devotees on the 12 Mahajans. Yesterday I was at a program, I was mentioning how we are following the 12 Mahajans and everything they say and do. But the whole world is following 11 Mahajans who are in that one football team. They are the Mahajans, the great people of that team. They are worshipped like anything. And someone was saying today to me that in some countries they keep the photos of these football players in the church. I think it's in Latin America or something, along with Jesus at the bottom, they put that. And they come and pray to Jesus and they maybe, please give them success. And so it is more than a religion. It's an obsession to the point of near madness. Yes? So they are following every move, every little word of their 11 Mahajans, who basically kick a ball around the field. And for that, millions and millions of people come and watch, and their lives are made or broken by those 11 Mahajans. And these 11 Mahajans are given billions of dollars, millions of dollars. And we also have other kinds of 11 Mahajans who move a ball around with a wooden stick. And so 11 people, and other 11 people are throwing the ball around. And others are trying to hit the ball around. So all 11 Mahajans, we prefer to follow the 12 Mahajans in understanding what real happiness and distress is, understanding what the real problem of life is. So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say, the real lack in this world is a lack of Krishna consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada also said many times, the fundamental problems of life in this material world is Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukkha Dosha Anudarshanam. It is a symptom of knowledge to see that birth, death, old age and disease are the fundamental problems of life. So when Krishna lists out the symptoms of knowledge in Bhagavad Gita, he mentions this as one of the symptoms. He mentions this as one of the symptoms to perceive and understand what the real problem of life is. Sometimes devotees wonder, why is it said here, birth, death, old age, disease? What's the big thing about that? The big thing is that so long as we do not understand that this is the fundamental problem of life, we are not going to be able to solve a problem, a real problem. They can, if the diagnosis, as I was mentioning, is not correct, what kind of therapy will you give? That therapy will never work. If you have one disease and you give the medicine for another kind of disease, it's going to be of no use. So similarly, the first step is to know that the real problem is this cycle of birth and death. As patients, we are patients. Why are we patients? Why are we afflicted? With what is it that we are afflicted? Suffering. Suffering comes into our life, misery comes in, problems after problems. Unwanted, we don't want these difficulties, but they come. They are forced upon us. Why? Why do I have to die? Why do I have to grow old? Why do I have to become diseased? Why do I have to take birth again? Athata Brahma Jigyasa, this jigyasa about the absolute truth, about one's own existence and one's conditioned state in this world is the beginning of true knowledge. So this state of existence, or this problem, is called bhava. Yes? Bhava means the material world. Bhava means to become, right? Bhava,
To be.
to be. So to be what? To be diseased, to be old, to be born again, and to be dead. This is bhava. Because you become all of these things. You become old, you become diseased, you become dead. So therefore this world is called bhava. And those who are afflicted by this disease is called bhava roga. That disease in which the fundamental symptom is that you have to be born and you have to die again and again and again. So this is the analysis of the problem. This is the diagnosis. So our 12 Mahajans, and Shukadev Goswami is one of our Mahajans, undoubtedly, the 12 Mahajans, he is very clear, the Srimad Bhagavatam is very clear, that the diagnosis is this bhava roga. So this bhava roga needs a medicine. So what is the aushadhi? What is that medicine that is just right for solving this problem, for relieving us of this disease? And that is what has been described here in this verse. The diagnosis along with the problem. What is the solution given here? Upagiyamanat. Upagiyamanat, Prabhupada translates as which is described or sung. And Shrotra Manaha Abhiramat. Now whatever is described or sung should be very pleasing. Abhirama. Abhirama is pleasing. So it should be very pleasing to the ears, to the mind, to the heart. So we have to describe or sing or hear such topics which are very pleasing to the heart, to the mind, to the ears. It should be always pleasing. We may say, what is pleasing? Well, people are so much enamored by materialistic novels and cinemas, plots and stories and talks of politics and other forms of gossip, worldly katha. Shrotavyadini Rajendra Nranam Santi Sahasrashah Apashyatam Atmatattvam Griheshu Grihamedina. So as Shukadev Goswami says, there is no shortage of topics, materialistic topics for the people of this world to hear and speak about. Shrotavya Adini, that means for hearing, speaking, etc., etc. Nirnam, for the human being. Santi Sahasrashaha, with thousands. There are thousands and thousands of such topics. And they relish such topics. Although these topics cannot fulfill us, give us a sense of fulfillment or satisfaction for long. So still they keep on indulging in hearing and speaking about and remembering such mundane topics. Because apashyatam atmatattvam, because they have no knowledge of spiritual realization, of self-realization, atmatattvam. And therefore they are called grihamedhis, because their medha, or their intelligence, their consciousness is absorbed in the griha, or in the samsara, in the home or in the world, in worldly affairs. So this upagiyamanat shrotra manaha abhiramat. So what is it that is to be sung and described and which will give us a real lasting pleasure to the ears and the heart? And that answer is given here. Uttama shloka gunanuvada. So Uttama shloka gunanuvada. Guna anuvada. Guna refers to the qualities, and anuvad means the description. So the description of the glories of Uttama Shloka, Sri Krishna, they constitute the subject matter which should be heard and repeated and remembered by all of us if we really want to give sustained eternal pleasure to our hearts and ears and mind. So the glorification of Sri Krishna, Uttama Shloka, is wanted in this world. Uttama Shloka. Shloka means a verse or poetry. So why is Krishna called Uttama Shloka? Because he is Uttama, he is the best. Or rather, the poetry that is describing him is the best, the topmost poetry, the choicest poetry. Because the Supreme Personality of Godhead is described by the choicest poetry, he is called Uttama Shloka. Another meaning of it is Uttama. Tama means darkness, of ignorance. Uttama means he who is forever beyond darkness of ignorance. That means he is transcendentally situated always. So those shlokas, those poetries that glorify he who is forever transcendentally situated is Uttama Shloka, Krishna. So glorification of Krishna is very, very important. That is the ultimate solution. It is the ultimate medicine. Bhava Aushadha. Bhava Aushadha. So the Aushadha or the medicine for this Bhava Roga, this Bhava. That is glorification of Krishna. Glorification of Krishna means glorification of Krishna through his pastimes, narration of his pastimes, his messages, narrations about his form, his abode, his devotees, his name, fame, glories, everything. So this is the meaning of Gunanuvada. Uttama Shloka Gunanuvada. And this constitutes the Bhava Aushadha, the ultimate medicine to solve all our problems once and for all. Now we may say, well, by chanting and hearing about Krishna, speaking about Krishna, we don't get relief from all the problems. We still have physical problems with the body, we still have mental problems, of stress and anxiety, we still have financial problems, we still have so many difficulties in life. So how is it a solution to our problems? Well, for one thing, it at least prevents unnecessary, unwanted, avoidable problems, which otherwise would have come to us had we been living a materialistic life. Most of the problems in life are associated with sinful living. So because the devotee abstains from sinful life, therefore the problems associated with newly committed sinful activities at least stop. Whatever sinful activities we have committed in the past, now the reactions for those actions will come, and we will bear them with fortitude. And we will bear them in the spirit that Brahma says, Tattenu kampam susamikshapanu bhunjana evatma kritam vipakam. Considering that these are the reactions to my own sinful acts, and I will bear them with fortitude, all the while patiently depending on the mercy of Lord Krishna. And even as I'm waiting, I will continue to do devotional service. Ridvagva purvir vidadhan namaste. Jivetayo mukti pade sadaya bhag. So this is the consciousness of a devotee. So the devotee experiences sufferings in different ways, but at least the devotee is leading a pure life, which will ensure that he or she does not suffer in the future. Even now as the devotee lives, he or she experiences certain taste, certain happiness. Susukham kartum avyayam. In performing devotional service, there is much happiness. Real happiness. Not the false happiness that is there in the enjoyment of this world. So the devotee therefore relishes Krishna consciousness, has good prasadam, has good philosophy, has good music, has good friends and association. There's a close bond between everyone. It is so wonderful. So all this is going on. So as devotees, therefore, we are happy despite whatever difficulties may come and go in our life. I like to tell this story frequently. I may have mentioned it to you in some previous class. That one time when Srila Prabhupada was in the West, one newspaper reporter or magazine reporter came and asked him, you say you have surrendered your life to Krishna, we should love Krishna, your whole life is meant for Krishna, but suppose you find after you die that Krishna does not exist, what will you do? And Prabhupada said, no problem, because even as we lived our life, we've enjoyed life with good prasadam, good food, good music, good company, good philosophy, body, mind, soul, we've all got nourished. But let me ask you a question. If you were to find after death that Krishna does exist, what would you do? Yes? So for us it's not a problem, but for you it is a problem. So you're taking a big risk by not taking to Krishna consciousness. So therefore, as devotees, we relish our spiritual life, we are happy in that, and whatever suffering and misery comes along, we just accept it as the mercy of Krishna. And what is also very important is that once the devotee leaves the body, that devotee is headed for the spiritual world, where there will be a permanent solution to this bhavaroga. There will be no further birth, death, old age and disease, because that devotee will attain a spiritual body in which there is no birth, death, old age, disease. So this is the meaning of Bhava Aushadha, the real medicine. Actually, all other efforts are simply a waste of time. When we speak about Krishna consciousness, our time is never wasted. But for one who is spending his time enjoying materialistic affairs and talks, every passing day with the rising and setting of the sun, he approaches closer to death. But not a devotee of the Lord. What is that verse from the Bhagavatam? Let me know. So, the devotee therefore never wastes his time. The non-devotees are simply approaching with each passing day, one day closer to death. But for the devotees, because they're hearing Krishna Katha, therefore their days are not wastefully spent. Every day is a day closer to eternity, to a permanent solution to this problem of bhavaroga. Because the devotee has regularly glorified Krishna, has participated in the hearing and chanting of Uttama Shloka Gunanuvada, of the descriptions of the glories of Sri Krishna. So here we have a succinct description of the problem of material existence and its solution. And we get ultimate benefit by doing this simple process. And because it is so simple and so effective, Parikshit Maharaj, who is asking this question, is surprised. Given that the analysis, the diagnosis and the prescription are so simple and so correct and so clear, why should any right-thinking person not do it, not accept this remedy? It is such a simple solution. But he gives the answer himself. Ka uttama shloka gunanuvada kumam virajyeta vina pashupna. Who will not participate in such glorification of Lord Krishna except vina pashupna. Pashupna. A pashupna. Vina means one who kills. So, who will not participate in this except a killer of animals, a butcher, a killer of animals or the cow, etc., as Srila Prabhupada mentions, or one, as Prabhupada mentions, is the killer of his own existence, his own personal existence, which means his spiritual life. Now, if it is so simple, aren't millions of people doing it? Are they not going to get the benefit of this? So Srila Prabhupada translates this as saying, it is not just Uttama Shloka Gunanuvada. It is not simply recitation of Krishna's glories, but how should we receive it? Although this verse doesn't specifically mention from whom we should receive it, but Srila Prabhupada clarifies that. I'll read the translation again, the first part. Glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is performed in the parampara system. That is, it is conveyed from the spiritual master to the disciple. So it is not randomly received from anyone and everyone. One time, one gentleman, Indian gentleman, he told Srila Prabhupada, because he was engaging in repeated discussions with him on philosophical topics. So he said, Swamiji, addressing Prabhupada, you are so often criticizing this one is a Mayavadi, this one is a Shunyavadi, this one is this and this one is that, the scientists are like this and the sense enjoyers are like that. But you know, a sadhu should be samadarshana. A person who is truly learned, pandita, should be samadarshana. Pandita samadarshana. So, why do you then not see everybody equally? So Prabhupada replied and said, we are samadarshana not in receiving knowledge. We are samadarshana when it comes to giving knowledge. Samadarshana, sama means equal, darshana means seeing. So our vision is not equal when we receive knowledge. And that's a very valid point. If you want to become a doctor, you will not go to a college of law. You will not go to an accounting institute. You will go to a medical college. And even when you go to a medical college, you will try to see what kind of college is it. Is it authorized? Does it have a proper registration or recognition by the authorities? Does it have good facilities? Are there good professors there? How are the students? What is the reputation of the college? And we may have a choice. We may say, okay, I have 3 or 4 universities I may go to, but we have our criteria for deciding to which college I will go based on how those criteria are fulfilled and the boxes are ticked. So in every stage of life, we select carefully who we will hear from. We don't randomly say any college will do, any teacher will do. We don't say that. We are very selective when receiving knowledge. So similarly, when it comes to spiritual knowledge, how much more careful should we be? Naturally, we will also be very selective. We will not just randomly hear for anyone who says, I know Bhagavad Gita, come hear from me. No. So we will ask him, sir, where is your degree from? Meaning, not literally a degree, but what is your qualification? Where have you learned from, sir? He say, I just read the books and I self-realized. No, sir, sorry. That is not our system. It is just like if somebody says, I've just become a doctor by my own effort and I'll do surgeries. What do you say, Sundarananda? Would you glorify such a doctor? You wouldn't.
Krishna, remember Krishna at that time.
You would allow him to hold a surgical knife near the patient.
In England, classically, near all the hospitals, there was always a mortuary. That used to be the classical, every old hospital has a
Mortuary. So every hospital has a mortuary.
And then next to it is a graveyard. So this outside you can see, so that was the natural
Sequence. So the hospital, the mortuary, and then the graveyard. Yes, that's the history of the world. Yes. So if someone says, I'll operate on your appendix, are you a surgeon? Well, no, I know how to do it. I've learned it from the internet. I can do it. You will not place your faith in him, right? So why should we place our faith in somebody who professes to teach us something that is more important than even surgery? That is the most important knowledge of our life that can relieve us from all the problems for all time to come. This surgical knowledge can relieve us from one problem of the appendix or whatever other problem there may be physically. But this knowledge, Uttama Shloka Gunanuvada, will relieve us from all problems for all time to come. What can be a more important branch of knowledge than this? So how much more careful we should be? So therefore Prabhupada said, we cannot hear from anyone and everyone. They will all come and give their own ideas, their own speculative interpretations of the message of Lord Krishna. So we have to take Krishna's message as it is. Therefore we must hear from one who has received the knowledge from an authorized source, a bona fide spiritual master. And how is that person a bona fide spiritual master? Because he has heard from another bona fide source, who is another bona fide spiritual master, and it must go all the way back to the Supreme Lord. This is called a bona fide disciplic succession. It is only this main qualification that is a criterion for us. Of course, personally also he must be qualified. But unless someone has this connection, one cannot say that he is a qualified person to teach us this knowledge. So that's what Srila Prabhupada mentions here, that the Uttama Shloka Gunanuvad must be received or done in the proper disciplic succession. So he mentioned to that gentleman, but when it comes to Panditah Samadarshana, we are Samadarshana when we give this knowledge. We don't say we will give it only to the Hindus, only to the Indians, only to Brahmins, only to the rich people, only to intelligent people or educated people. No, we give it to anyone and everyone who's willing to come. We don't bother about material designations. This is Samadarshana. So the equality of vision comes in giving knowledge to others, in doing beneficial work to others, not in receiving that transcendental knowledge. So this is a very important point. And in his purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions here, I'll read a portion of the purport now, the first part. Quote, in India it is a practice among the general populace to hear about Krishna, either from Bhagavad Gita or from Srimad Bhagavatam, in order to gain relief from the disease of repeated birth and death. Although India is now fallen, when there is a message that someone will speak about Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, thousands of people still gather to hear. This verse indicates, however, that such recitation of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam must be done by persons completely freed from material desires, nivritta tarshaihi. Everyone within this material world, beginning from Brahma down to the insignificant ant, is full of material desires for sense enjoyment, and everyone is busy in sense gratification. But when thus engaged, one cannot fully understand the value of Krishna Katha, either in the form of Bhagavad Gita or in Srimad Bhagavatam. So another qualification that is required is nivritta tarshaihi. Krishna means thirst. The thirst for material objects, the thirst for this world. Nivritta, one who is given up on that, who is past that, is the perfect candidate to actually glorify. So when one glorifies the Lord, one must be a nivritta tarshai. One must be freed from these materialistic activities. That is why it begins by nivritta tarshai rupakiyamana. So especially the Uttama Shloka Gunanuvad becomes powerful. The more pure, the more freed from material desire that the speaker is, and that the more surrendered and more devoted the speaker is to Lord Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada continues to speak. Alright, he says, if we hear the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from liberated persons, this hearing will certainly free us from the bondage of material activities. But hearing Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by a professional reciter cannot actually help us achieve liberation. So this is unquote. So this is a theme that Srila Prabhupada speaks about often. Because in India it is very common to find people who are professional reciters of the Srimad Bhagavatam. They are very eloquent speakers, very charismatic, very knowledgeable in terms of the subject matter there, in terms of how to present it. They present it very attractively, and they also include a lot of music, and they are also very good singers. So the effect is that people are generally very well entertained. It is pious entertainment as opposed to some other rajasic or tamasic entertainment. But the speaker is not purely motivated. Why so? Because he seeks some material benefit from that katha. So there are many, Prabhupada used to say, there are many famous kathakars or speakers like this who charge exorbitant sums of money if you want them to come and speak Srimad Bhagavatam or give a Bhagavad Gita discourse or a series of discourses. They charge a huge amount. And because they're materially motivated like this, the listeners will also become materially motivated. Only those kind of people will come to hear him, because they are hoping that by hearing this person, they will also make advancement in their material life. They are not coming for advancement in spiritual life to hear such a person. They may come for advancement in some pious religious life, but not spiritual life. And because the quality of the consciousness of the speaker will also affect the consciousness and the qualities of the listeners. So because the speaker is infected, so to speak, with so much of material consciousness, it will affect the listeners. And often these speakers will speak only certain types of pastimes. They will hardly ever speak deep philosophy. Their talks will mostly be very entertaining, and they will talk about Rasa Leela or about some other pastimes. But hardly ever will they speak about how this material world is a place of misery. They will hardly ever speak about things that we should not do, the forbidden activities. So such things people don't like to hear, so they won't speak them. So then it's a good combination in a sense, because the speaker needs that kind of audience, and the audience needs this kind of a speaker. So this is called a compatible combination, although it is not a very useful combination. It is not spiritually productive. It is spiritually, in fact, harmful, but it's compatible. At least the speaker and hearer are on the same wavelength and they are happy, at least somewhat happy. If the speaker is materialistically inclined and the audience is like all of you, who want only pure spiritual life, the speaker will get fed up. Oh no, what to do? All of these people want only pure devotion. I will not get, much material benefit here. So he is not interested. So he feels in his heart no happiness. So it's an incompatible combination. Meanwhile, the listeners also think, oh, he's not giving us pure Krishna consciousness. So they are also not satisfied. And meanwhile, if it's reversed, the speaker is pure, wants to give pure Krishna consciousness, but the audience wants to hear some material things. So the speaker gets frustrated. Oh, what an audience. I want to give them pure Krishna consciousness, but they want to hear, how can I use this to get more money, to get this promotion in my job, or so on and so forth. But the perfect compatible combination is when both the speaker and the listener are in pure Krishna consciousness, like Shukadev Goswami and King Parikshit, like Suta Goswami and the sages at Naimisharanya, like Narad Muni and Vasudev, or Narad Muni and Yudhishthir Maharaj, or like Krishna and Uddhava, or like Krishna and Arjuna. So these are all perfectly compatible combinations. This is the kind of Krishna Katha that we should be hearing. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada quotes another verse that he cites very often. Vaishnava mukhod putam hari kathamritam shravanam naiva kartavyam sarpochishtam yatha payaha. He says, Vaishnava mukhod one should not hear. What a mukhod is that which comes out from the mouth. Putam hari kathamritam. Hari Katha or Krishna Katha is Amrit. It is Putam, it is purifying, it is also nectar, Amrit. But Shravanam Naiva Kartavya, one should not hear such nectarian, purifying Krishna Katha from the mouth, that which comes out from the mouth of an Vaishnava, who is not a devotee of the Lord. Why is that? Sarpa uchishta yatha payaha. Payaha means milk. So just as when a poisonous serpent touches the pot of pure milk. Even the milk, though it is normally very nourishing and good for health, it is delicious, etc. But that milk now becomes poisonous because it has poison through the fangs of the snake. So similarly, Harikatha is normally nectar. It is very nice to hear. It is purifying. But when spoken by a non-devotee, then what happens? Then it has an opposite effect. It has a poisonous effect. So therefore, this Uttama Shloka Gunanuvad must be heard from a person who is situated in Vaishnava behavior. A Vaishnava is Nivritta Trishna, that is, he has no material purpose, Prabhupada says. For his only purpose is to preach Krishna consciousness. So-called scholars, philosophers and politicians exploit the importance of Bhagavad Gita by distorting its meaning for their own purposes. Now this is another category of people we should not be hearing from. The first category are those who are professional reciters, who are materially motivated, who want money, name, fame, prestige from such katha. The second kind of reciters or speakers are those who will give their own mundane, speculative interpretations to the words of the scriptures, to the words of the Supreme Lord and the great devotees in history. Therefore, hearing such explanations is also very harmful to our Krishna consciousness. The Krishna consciousness movement, Prabhupada says, is therefore trying to train qualified preachers to recite Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita throughout the entire world, so that people in general in all parts of the world may take advantage of this movement and thus be relieved of the miseries of material existence. Then Prabhupada says that there are two classes of men who will never be interested in hearing the message of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Pashugna. He gives two meanings of the word Pashugna. One, he says, those who are determined to commit suicide. Spiritual suicide. They have no interest in spiritual life whatsoever. That's like spiritual suicide. And second, and those determined to kill cows and other animals for the satisfaction of their own tongues. So these kind of people will find it hard, almost impossible, to get a taste or relish or interest in hearing Krishna Katha. So therefore it is so important that we follow the principle of no meat eating. Yes? Sometimes people ask, what is the problem? Apart from all the other issues and all the other problems associated with meat, one problem additionally is, for one who is eating meat, it is hard to develop interest in hearing Krishna Katha. In other words, it is hard for such people to take the real medicine of Krishna consciousness. Even things like onion and garlic. People ask, what is wrong with onion and garlic? Because these are foods in the mode of ignorance and passion, so they affect our inclination to hear and discuss Krishna Katha. So our food has to be pure, it has to be sattvic. That also affects our consciousness. So if we are eating all these items, it will be hard for us to develop any interest in this. Persons fond of performing ritualistic ceremonies for elevation to the higher planetary system must offer sacrifices by killing animals. Lord Buddha Deva therefore rejected the authority of the Vedas because his mission was to stop animal sacrifices, which are recommended in Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. Even though animal sacrifices are sanctioned in Vedic ceremonies, men who kill animals for such ceremonies are considered butchers. Butchers cannot be interested in Krishna consciousness, for they are already materially allured. And especially in Kali Yuga, it is not at all recommended, because we don't have the kind of priests who are qualified to chant mantras in a perfect manner to bring that animal back to life, or to give him another fresh human form of life. This is not possible these days. So therefore such animal sacrifices were not considered killing in the previous ages, as far as the Vedas are concerned. But it is forbidden. We cannot do it now. And we see today, wherever there is mass slaughter of animals in whatever name, that place becomes hellish. It becomes like a hellish planet. And the karmic reactions come back very heavy, fast and thick. Many times we hear about this one incident. There was a king of a neighboring country, and he came to India and he went to a particular religious place, and as was his belief and custom, and also as was the practice in that particular temple of a demigoddess, he sacrificed many animals. He had them killed right there, slaughtered them in large numbers. And just a short time later, his entire family was slaughtered by his own son. His own son, the prince, actually shot all the family members dead when they were in a family meeting or something like that.
Is Bhutan Maharaj?
No, not Bhutan, Nepal. So that king there, it is said, so people, many times people comment like this. They say, just see, because he went and did this huge animal slaughter, therefore his entire family was slaughtered like that. So the karmic reactions will come. So when one indulges in such activities, there is no question of developing some taste for some spiritual activities. You can do some mundane religious activities like this for some sense gratification. You can try to use religion as a vehicle for sense enjoyment. But it is not real spiritual life. So such people, for such people it is hard to take to Krishna consciousness, to avail of this ultimate medicine. Then Srila Prabhupada goes on to say, explaining how the devotees, although may not be big scholars and so on and so forth, they're simply interested in Krishna consciousness. And therefore, see how the effect has been for them. Quote, although the devotees of the Krishna consciousness movement are quite young men, they no longer read materialistic newspapers, magazines, and so on, for they are no longer interested in such topics, nivritta tarshani. They completely give up the bodily understanding of life. For topics concerning Uttama Shloka, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the spiritual master speaks and the disciple hears with attention. Unless both of them are free from material desires, they cannot be interested in topics of Krishna consciousness. The spiritual master and disciple do not need to understand anything more than Krishna, because simply by understanding Krishna and talking about Krishna, one becomes a perfectly learned person. Yasmin vijñāte sarvayevam vijñātam bhavati. Mundaka Upanishad. So I'll repeat this. The spiritual master and disciple do not need to understand anything more than Krishna, because simply by understanding Krishna and talking about Krishna, one becomes a perfectly learned person. Yad dhita manya uttamam. Prahlada also says the same thing. One who practices the ninefold process of bhakti, navavidha bhakti, is the most learned person, Prahlada says. So the devotees of the Lord, either the spiritual master or the disciples, do not have to be necessarily learned in all the innumerable Vedic scriptures, all the Karma Kanda scriptures and Dharma Shastras and Agamas and Pancharatras and all the different kinds of scriptures. But one must be conversant properly with Krishna and Krishna consciousness. Then one can make one's life perfect and one becomes the most learned persons. Since merely talking about Krishna is so pleasing, we can simply imagine how pleasing it is to render service to Krishna, Prabhupada says. When discourses on Krishna Katha take place between a liberated spiritual master and his disciple, others also sometimes take advantage of hearing these topics and also benefit. These topics are the medicine to stop the repetition of birth and death. The cycle of repeated birth and death by which one takes on different bodies again and again is called bhava or bhavaroga. If anyone willingly or unwillingly hears Krishna Katha, his bhavaroga, the disease of birth and death, will certainly stop. Therefore Krishna Katha is called bhavaushadha, the remedy to stop the repetition of birth and death. Even for those who are materialistically inclined, if they come in the association of such devotees who are engaged in speaking and hearing about Krishna, then such a materialistic person will also get purified. Prabhupada gives the example of Dhruva Maharaj, who came with a materialistic purpose, but then when he became Krishna conscious, he lost all his material desires. Sthanabhilashi tapasi sthitoham tvam praptvan deva munindra guhyam kacham vichinman apitidya ratnam swamin kritarthosmi varam nayache. My dear Lord, I came in front of you to ask for a huge material benediction, to get a huge kingdom bigger than Brahma's kingdom. But now that I have seen you, who are extremely difficult to obtain even for the demigods, I have understood that I was looking for broken pieces of glass, and that now I have actually found a priceless transcendental diamond. So Swamin Kritarthaha, oh my dear Lord, I am completely satisfied. Varam na yache, I don't want any more benedictions or boons from you. So this is the miracle, the mystical process that happens here. And finally Prabhupada concludes by saying, we actually see that even young boys and girls in the Krishna consciousness movement have given up their long practice of bad habits like illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication and gambling, because Krishna consciousness is so potent that it gives them full satisfaction. They are no longer interested in material sense gratification. So this is our medical sutra. Diagnosis and prescription. Both are here. And also the other do's and don'ts are given. How should we do it? What precautions we should take? When the doctor gives the medicine, he also gives some precautions and gives us a method how to take the medicines. You know, you take this before meals or after meals, or take it with water, take it with this, that, whatever. So Prabhupada has given us this clarification. He has clarified what this prescription means and how it should be taken and how it should not be taken. So if we take the medicine right in the proper way, then the result will be that we will become freed from this disease called Bhavaroga. That is the perfection of our life. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, dear Kartik Chandra Prabhu and Shriji Sundari Devi, oh, you're here, okay. And Dhruva, where is Dhruva? Dhruva and Revati. So thank you for hosting us this evening for Kirtan and Krishna Katha. So your house is always a wonderful place of cultivating Krishna consciousness. We hope and pray that you and your family may continue to grow in Krishna consciousness and continue to inspire others as you are doing now in Krishna consciousness. And thank you everyone for having come today. So we will do some Kirtan, because we haven't had Mahamantra Kirtan much. We had before I began. We did nice Kirtan, Mahamantra Kirtan. So we'll have a little Kirtan now, okay? Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Vidhane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatadeshatane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so we'll just halt the delay the kirtan by 2 minutes and some announcements, okay? Hare Krishna.
Sorry for interrupting. In our family, Sangha family, we have many devotees who have their birthday who have their birthday in the summer. So many summer babies. The oldest one is Nitya Mataji, and I think the youngest one would be Vrishni. Yes. So in the sequence, today is the Tithi birthday. Today is the Tithi birthday. Tithi means the Vedic calendar birthday of Revati. And 10th of July is Mansiben's birthday. And then 18th of July is Diptashru's birthday. And then 20th of July is Aparna Mataji's birthday. And then in August 21st, 14th August is Nitya Mataji's. And 25th August is Vrishni's birthday. So we have 6 birthdays. The reason I interrupted is because please stay, don't go out. For those who have their birthday, 6 of them, Maharaj will give you Maha Shira.
Everyone?
Not everyone.
Why?
We
are also born
very
in
long
this
queue. If anything is left, then everyone. And then after the Kirtan, Maharaj will be available in the room, DT's room, next room, to meet devotees. And Prasadam, Maharaj will be taking Prasadam there, and he will meet devotees there. He has to leave around 8:30. So
8 is better.
8 is better, yeah. So we'll try and make it to that time. So yeah. So thank you.
You know how a birthday has to be received, yes? Normally birthday means, I'm going to get some nice gifts and everybody, I will be the center of attention. My body is so many years old. But birthday is an occasion to get the blessings of everyone, especially the Vaishnavas. And a blessing so that we can progress in our Krishna consciousness, so that we can achieve the success in our life, real success in life. It is also an opportunity for us to bring together all the Vaishnavas and hear and chant about Krishna, and to make a firmer resolve in our own mind about how it is important for us to take Krishna consciousness seriously. So it's not just about us, it's about how we must now take Krishna consciousness more seriously. So on the birthdays, we should go and ask blessings from everyone, please, especially the Vaishnavas. No? Please bless us. That should be the mood. Okay? And today is your birthday. Devati's birthday. So today you can go and ask everybody for blessings. Okay, before they leave.
Before the leave, yeah?
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hari Hari Bol.